We acknowledge that Tri-Cities Community Television operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. We thank the Coquitlam who continue to live on these lands and care for them along with the waters and all that is above and below.
Welcome to Tri-Cities Community Television. I'm Cathy Cena. First off, before we get started, I'd love to thank the library here right in Coquitlam at Poirier for donating the space to us today. And we continue on with our election series. We move into Coquitlam with Rosalinda Thorleifson is here. You're running for Coquitlam City Council. Welcome to the studio and thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's very exciting. And thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you. You're welcome, actually. Okay, let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Tell us why you're running for Coquitlam Council in this election.
So I've lived in Coquitlam my whole life, born and raised. Mm-hmm. I love the city. I think it's honestly one of the best places in the world to live. Mm-hmm. My parents had a small business here for 30 years, and I watched them be very integrated with the community, working with programs like Rotary and different charities, and they always taught me how important it was to give back to your community. Mm-hmm. I myself have been working for the last 15 years with enterprise-level companies and in the Canadian tech sector, helping them build their teams from the ground up, helping them break into the Canadian American markets, while at the same time volunteering as Strata Council President for my building, helping with infrastructure planning, budgeting, and everything involved with that.
Right.
And I really want to take my skills that I've learned over the years of my career and give back to the community I love so much, just like my parents taught me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're going to talk about the different priorities, but right now, what is one issue that you believe matters to most Coquitlam residents?
Definitely livability. When I'm out talking to people, door knocking, talking to people in our community, a lot of people are concerned about the pace of growth, their neighborhoods not being able to keep up with how much development we have going on. So we really, really need to make sure that anything that we're building and growing, that we're putting in place the community resources needed so that those neighborhoods feel supported.
Thank you. If elected, what are your 3 top priorities for Coquitlam?
So number 1 is definitely livable homes. The Canadian housing ladder isn't the same as it used to be. Now there's a couple more steps in place. People really need to go from a 1-bedroom home to a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, maybe if they can stretch it a home or a townhouse. So we really need to be looking at pushing more 2- to 3-bedroom homes on the market, especially those 3-bedroom condos. They're not as available, and we need to make them more competitive and make more availability for the people in the community so that they can kind of take those steps to grow into larger and larger homes. At the same time, we need to be making sure that those homes aren't shrinking smaller and smaller, because what we found is the smaller these homes are getting, they're not getting any more affordable. So we need to be making sure that we're creating quality of life in Coquitlam and we're putting livable homes in our community, because once a development is approved, it's up for 60 or 80 years, and so we need to get it right the first time.
What are your other 2 priorities?
So the second is definitely jobs and industry. Coquitlam is still very much a commuter city where, unless you're lucky enough to work from home, you get in your car in the morning and you drive out to other cities for work. I myself worked in cities like Burnaby and Pitt Meadows throughout my career, and those cities have done a really good job over the last 10-15 years of attracting hubs of industries and companies, providing really good jobs for their communities. So, Coquitlam and the council has done a really good job of putting the infrastructure in place to be more competitive. So I think I would love to just join council and advocate to companies and commerce to bring their companies, bring their jobs to Coquitlam. We have the talent, we have the transit, we have the dedicated fiber network. So really I want Coquitlam to be the kind of place where you can live and work in the same place. And then third, it's really just about fighting for Coquitlam. A lot of times decisions are made at higher levels of government that impact Coquitlam residents, and we get a lot of costs kind of downloaded onto us that we have to kind of eat with our property taxes. One example of this is about $38 million in costs that we've had to take from property taxes due to homelessness, addiction issues, or mental health issues that really should be covered by the province. So we need people on council, hopefully me, joining and really advocating to the province and the feds that we need the proper funding to be able to support the most vulnerable in our community.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move into housing. It's a major concern, as you know. What do we do to balance growth, affordability, and protect Coquitlam's character?
Yeah, this is a major thing for my campaign. It's all about quality of life for the residents of Coquitlam. We are more land constrained than other neighboring cities. We back onto the mountains. That's not easy to build into. So what we approve matters a lot. And so we need to be looking and making sure we're putting the community services into place, healthcare, recreational services, community centers, all of that. We also need to be making sure that if we're putting multi-story units into neighborhoods where there's never existed before, we're assessing and building those community services at the same time, keeping pace with growth.
Thank you. That does move on to our next question about keeping pace with growth. What are your thoughts on the density, development, and infrastructure?
Yeah, that's something that we've seen kind of worry a lot of residents. Right now our community centers are at max capacity. A lot of resources that should be available to certain neighborhoods are not. So that would be a main focus of mine as a city councillor, making sure that we're building the infrastructure to be able to provide the services. We need to make it easy for people to be able to access either the healthcare or the different programs they need. One example of this across Canada is that we have a shortage of doctors across the nation. That's not really something a city council alone obviously can answer to, but I would love to be a voice pushing the province to bring programs that are successful to our community. For example, the province has a program they use with rural communities where they take internationally trained doctors and they place them and certify them and place them in rural communities, and they've had really good success with that. I would really advocate for them to expand that into suburban cities like Coquitlam, where we desperately need doctors.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What are your plans around community safety, mental health supports, and emergency preparedness?
Yeah, so luckily Coquitlam is blessed with a pretty low crime rate, but crime isn't spread evenly across neighborhood to neighborhood. I myself know this. As strata president for my building, we've dealt with a lot of vandalism, break-ins to cars, to our buildings, to storage locker units over various years. And I had to reinforce all the outside doors of our building. I had to put security cameras everywhere. And still the break-ins continue to persist. So we need to be aware that these are very real issues in certain neighborhoods, and we need to be allocating the funding and the resources to be monitoring these issues and making people feel protected in their neighborhoods. And then for mental health services and emergency preparedness, a lot of this has to do with funding. We need to be fighting for the funding so that we can support our community and the most vulnerable. The city actually has a lot of really great plans in place for emergencies, and they've laid those out at various times, and we just need to be making sure that we're funding that and we're ready to react. We've seen right now there's smoke in the air everywhere. People sadly were evacuated from their homes in Anmore. There was local fires. So we need to be making sure if anything happens in Coquitlam, we're ready to act right away.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How can the city better support families, seniors, and youth and small businesses?
So I've talked a little bit about homes and healthcare. I think those are kind of basic needs that need to be met. But one thing a lot of people don't really talk about is the importance of third spaces. And a third space is anywhere you would go that's not your home and it's not your workplace. So these are places like, the community center that you would go to for a workout after work, a rec center where you might have a soccer team that you play with, or an art teacher that'll teach you an art class, or even the park where you go biking with your friends. And all of these places people go there to connect, to build friendships, to build community, and honestly, to do a lot for their mental health. We need to be providing the infrastructure and the support to make sure that we're keeping up with the pace of growth, so that we can offer these resources and make it as easy as possible for people to also, if you're an artist in the city and you want to offer an art class, let's give them the spaces to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're going to move into traffic, transit, and parking. All of this remains a concern. What solutions would you champion around these items?
Yeah, so number one is I do think we need to be looking at a hard look at areas that are dealing with a lot of congestion. Do we need to widen roads? Do we need to look at, adding more connectors? That's one thing. A second thing is we need to be monitoring areas around the SkyTrain, because the province did remove minimum parking restrictions for buildings around SkyTrain hubs. So we need to be assessing kind of the neighboring streets. Is parking overflowing into those areas? Is it making it difficult and more cumbersome for other residents in that neighborhood? That's something we need to be monitoring, and we need to be pushing developers for shared parking spaces with smart designs. And then, honestly, the most important of all is that we we need to be listening to residents, because council can't be everywhere at all times. So nobody knows these roads better than the residents that drive them every day. And when I'm out door knocking, I do hear, about problem issues. There's one resident that was just telling me this week that there's a tree next to their strata lot. They're in a townhouse complex that's been knocked down 4 different times by 4 different cars because there's so much speeding and just the way the road is configured that it's really dangerous. And God forbid that's a child next time. So we need to be making sure the city is responsive to repeated complaints, sending out people to investigate and looking at how we can make changes.
So what kind of leadership style would you bring to council?
At the end of the day, I'm a team player. I'm an advocate. And, I'm always supporting those around me. So I'm always listening. I'm always trying to build consensus. And I'm always learning from the people that I work with, and that's the kind of style of leadership that I want to bring to Coquitlam City Council. There's a lot of really talented people working for the city, and we need to be making sure as a council that we're championing and advocating for their ideas, but also communicating those ideas clearly to the public and creating a two-way dialogue so that we can, when we put something in place and we approve something, that the city feels heard, and then, we can champion staff ideas.
Thank you. Residents sometimes feel disconnected from municipal politics. How would you improve transparency and public engagement?
So when I'm out door knocking, people definitely tell me that 1, they find it really hard to find local news, and 2, that they often feel unheard from City Hall. So I think there's 2 things we can do, because the city actually has really good tools in place. They have an e-newsletter, they have an online portal, they stream city council meetings, they have social media, so they definitely have the tools. I think it's more of a lack of awareness of what's available to them. So we need to be doing as much as we can to advocate to the public, to get them aware of what tools they have available to them to connect and learn about what's going on at the local level. But we also need to be holding more hearings. We need to be holding them well ahead of a vote so that we're giving people the space to really give us their feedback on any potential projects that are going to be happening in their neighborhood. And then we can take that feedback and really put that into consideration before making any final vote.
Thank you. What's one thing about Coquitlam that you absolutely love?
Definitely the people. Definitely. I have friendships that I've maintained since grade school and high school. I don't think it's every community that you're able to do that. It speaks to the quality of the people in Coquitlam. It's not just friends. It's the neighborhood coffee shop where I walk in and they know my order right away. Or the dance teacher that I would see every Wednesday that just brightened up my week and made my stress melt away. Or the amazing first responders we have in the community who would always come so quickly when my late father was sick. People in Coquitlam are always showing up for each other, and that's why I want to show up for them. That's why I'm running.
Mm-hmm. Tell voters something that they may not know about you.
So one thing people might not know about me, my friends definitely do, but voters probably don't, is that I'm a big jewelry lover. And I actually got into silversmithing a couple of years ago. I've had a lot of fun building up my home studio and making gifts for family and friends. I'm actually wearing a necklace I made last month and these earrings that I made for myself. So it's just a great creative outlet. And I think it's so important for adults to make sure they have hobbies in different ways that they can find to really engage the creative side of themselves. So get a hobby.
Get a hobby. Last question in 1 minute or less, if you could wrap it up. Why should voters vote for you on October 17th?
I've lived in this community my whole life. I understand Coquitlam. I understand budgeting. I understand what it takes to engage with the public and give back. So I really want to take the skills that I've learned throughout my career and provide that for my community. And if you want somebody who really knows the city, who has a lot of experience advocating and leading teams, then I'm the girl for you.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for being in the studio, Rosalinda. It's great to hear from you. You're listening to Rosalinda Thorleifson. She's running for City Council in Coquitlam, and she'd like your vote. She believes in a better quality of life. I'm Cathy Cena. Thanks so much for watching Tri-Cities Community Television. Until next time.